Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about some methods of instructional design. Now, as a team, I know we normally do things a certain way, but we're going to encounter clients that come in and they want something different than our standards. So let's just take a look, of some of the other ways that people do instructional design. I've made this handout for you, and you can keep it on, on your desk. To refer to it for future, any conversations we're having with clients. But rest assured, if we get a new project in that's with a method that we're not used to dealing with, we're going to talk about it in detail to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Okay? So let's just go a brief overview of these. So I have, if you look down the left side, going from top to bottom, I have Dick and Carey, Kemp Design, Addy, Assure, Rapid Prototyping, SAM, and Backward Design. Okay? Across the top, I've broken it into chunks that typically are part of the process, right? The very first one is reason for instruction. After that, description of the learners, development of learning objectives, plan design and develop instruction, assessment of effectiveness, and then the common use for that method. Okay, so let's just take a quick walk through here to talk about some of the differences and similarities between these different methods. Okay, let's start with Dick and Carey. The first thing here is identify a goal. Dick and Carey goes to the point of pre-testing learners to understand their characteristics and their level of knowledge prior to the instruction. Okay, they set up performance objectives and very specific criterion referenced assessments. Okay, so we want to be sure that they have understood the information. Okay, then they develop an instructional strategy and instructional materials that relate specifically to the strategy. At the end, they review the results and revise the instruction until it gets the job done. Okay, so I see this most used in logical sequence processes and in certain situations where it's very important that they have specific understandings. Let's say HIPAA comes to mind. Okay. Next is Kemp Design. Again, we see that we would identify instructional problems up front and define the goals. Then work to understand the learner's characteristics. What do they know? What is their demographics? Are they military? Are they executives? Are they, third graders? Okay. Then the development of learning objectives. Identify goals, content, and tasks. Then plan for a logical sequence to ensure mastery. Develop assessments and support resources. Okay. This Kemp Design does not have a specific requirement for assessment of effectiveness, but you always want to do that anyway. And this particular method has a greater emphasis than others on the learner. Okay. Next, Addy is something you're pretty familiar with. By the time we get it, the reason for instruction has already been well established, so that's not part of the method. The description of the learners, again, we want to know who our audience is, what are their characteristics and their prior knowledge, expected knowledge coming in, okay? Then development of learner objectives, we just need to determine the goal. What are we trying to do here? And then design and develop learning instruction and deliver that instruction. And then we would be more specific about evaluating how it worked. Formative and summative evaluations. And this one has pretty broad application, is used very often. Okay. Assure as well. Again, we start with understanding learners' characteristics, and then we would state our standards and objectives. So this standards goes into more specific criteria such as engineering or state requirements, things like this. The plan, design, and development of instruction for Assure, you would set the strategy, establish which resources you're going to be using, and supporting technology to build the lessons. And then in Assure, it absolutely requires learner participation in the actual evaluation and learning process. So at the end, you would evaluate and revise the lessons according to its effectiveness, and this too has broad application. The next set are more truncated. Rapid prototyping begins with set learning objectives and then setting a strategy and designing a prototype. This reminds me of agile project management, where software developers develop one piece, one application, one piece of the application that works, and then move from there. So set the learning objectives, design a prototype, gather feedback, and then revise according to that feedback. Continue the cycle until the entire objective has been met. Okay. SAM is used for analyzing learning objectives in much the same way, but instead of feedback from the user, we would just analyze the learning objectives, develop the design, and then analyze the design and revise again. This also is good for smaller projects. For backward design, we start with identifying the desired results and then developing the assessments that we will use to test to ensure we've reached those results, and then design learning to demonstrate mastery. And this looks strangely a lot like teaching to the test. But be that as it may, it doesn't have to be that specific, but it's being more specific about what we need to teach. But I would say that this is used in quick turn applications such as K through 12 education. So that's just a quick run through of the methods of instructional design that we could be using. Again, we will go into these in more detail if we are in need of using a new method that's not what we typically do. Thank you.